Bible does not struggle with time. It is exact when it wants to be exact. It tells us the precise day the flood began in Noah's generation. It records the hour darkness swallowed the land during the crucifixion. It even traces kings, reigns, and genealogies with deliberate precision. Yet the birth of Jesus Christ, the moment that divided history, arrives without a date. No month, no day, no seasonal reference. And that silence is not accidental. If you search the Gospels for December 25th, you will not find it. Not once, not indirectly, not implied. None of the biblical writers anchor the Messiah's birth to winter. So why does the modern world treat December 25th as settled fact? And more importantly, when did the birth actually occur? Because the truth is not absent. It is layered, hidden in plain sight, scattered across historical detail, cultural context, astronomical signals, and priestly records are 7 clues. Separately, they seem harmless. Together, they form a timeline that cannot be ignored. Let's follow the trail. Luke begins the birth narrative with political movement. A decree goes out from Caesar Augustus. A registration is ordered across the empire. Joseph travels from Nazareth to Bethlehem because of his ancestral lineage. Mary accompanies him pregnant, and while they are there, she gives birth. This was not coincidence. 7 centuries earlier, prophecy had narrowed the Messiah's birthplace to Bethlehem. Not Jerusalem, not Nazareth, Bethlehem. Rome's bureaucracy became the unseen instrument of prophecy. But timing matters. Bethlehem lies in Judea's highlands. Winters there are not symbolic, they are real. Cold rain, saturated ground, short daylight, difficult travel. Roads became unreliable. Long journeys were avoided. Rome valued efficiency. Mass displacement during winter would have invited delays, unrest, and economic disruption. Registrations were typically coordinated during seasons when movement was feasible, often tied to harvest completion or pilgrimage periods when people were already traveling. Now consider the human cost. Nazareth to Bethlehem required days of walking across uneven terrain. Mary was in the final stage of pregnancy. A winter journey under those conditions would not have been strategic. It would have been reckless. The registration itself strongly suggests a milder season. But Luke offers another detail that sharpens the picture. Luke tells us that shepherds were living in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks during the night. This detail is not poetic decoration. It is environmental evidence. In winter, shepherds did not keep sheep in open pasture overnight. Cold rain endangered the animals. Exposure risked illness and loss. Historical Jewish writings confirm that flocks were sheltered during winter months. Luke's wording describes active guarding rotating watches, alert presence, not animals resting in enclosures. This scene only fits seasons with stable weather. Spring, when lambing required constant supervision. Summer, when nighttime grazing avoided daytime heat. Early autumn, before winter forced shelter. December does not fit. If shepherds were outside, the season was mild. But Luke adds another layer beneath the surface. Shepherds occupied the lowest rung of society. They were distrusted, often considered ceremonially unclean, excluded from legal testimony. And yet they are the first recipients of the announcement. Not priests, not scholars, not rulers. The birth begins not in halls of power, but in fields among those pushed aside. This detail reinforces a pattern, but also anchors the season. The narrative moves forward. Matthew introduces a different kind of witness. Magi from the east arrive in Jerusalem, asking a question that unsettles the city. Where is the one-born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose. These were not mystics chasing legend. They were trained observers of the sky men whose role was to interpret celestial events as political and historical signals. Ancient cultures viewed the heavens as ordered communication. Unusual alignments carried meaning. Modern astronomical reconstructions reveal rare planetary events in the years before the Common Era, particularly involving Jupiter, long associated with rulership. But the most important detail is not what the star was. It is how long it functioned. The Magi did not arrive at a manger. They arrived later. Matthew describes Jesus not as an infant but as a child. This means the star marked a season, not a single night, which explains Herod's reaction. Herod ruled by fear. He held power through alliance with Rome, not lineage. So, when foreign dignitaries arrived asking about a newborn king, Herod understood the implication. This was not religious curiosity. It was a threat. He consulted religious authorities who confirmed the prophecy. Bethlehem. Herod waited for the Magi to return with information. They never did. Warned in a dream, they departed by another route. Herod responded with violence. He ordered the execution of male children 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and its surrounding region. This age limit reveals everything. If Herod believed the birth had occurred recently, the order would have targeted infants. Instead, he allowed for a window of up to 2 years. That window aligns with the star's first appearance. Now, place this against history. Herod the Great died before the calendar marks year 1. Therefore, the birth had to occur during the final years of his reign. This places Jesus' birth earlier than most people assume, not because scripture is unclear, but because later calendars were misaligned. Centuries after the event, a system was created to number years from Christ's birth. Historical anchors were misjudged. The system was adopted globally. The labels remained. The timeline did not change. Jesus was born before the year labeled for him, and now the year range narrows. But scripture goes further. Luke introduces Zechariah, a priest serving in the temple, and then Luke does something rare. He names the priestly division. Zechariah belonged to the division of Abijah. Israel's priests served according to a structured rotation established generations earlier. Each division served during appointed times. Because the division of Abijah has a fixed place in that order, it reveals a season. Zechariah serves during his assigned rotation. While performing his duty, an angel appears and announces that his wife Elizabeth will conceive. After his service concludes, Zechariah returns home. Elizabeth becomes pregnant. Luke then gives a precise interval. 6 months later, the angel Gabriel appears again, this time to Mary. That places Jesus' conception half a year after John's. When Zechariah's rotation is placed in the calendar, it points to late spring or early summer. 6 months later places Mary's conception in late autumn. Add the length of pregnancy. The birth lands in early fall. This aligns with everything already established. But there is more. Israel did not operate on arbitrary dates. Its calendar was sacred. Major redemptive events aligned with appointed times. Passover framed sacrifice. Pentecost framed outpouring. So consider the season the timeline points to, early fall. That is when Israel celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles. For days, the people lived in temporary shelters, remembering the wilderness years when God dwelled among them. It was a celebration of presence. Now listen again to John's language. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The original meaning is not vague residence. It is tabernacling, God pitching his tent among humanity. The alignment is not accidental. A fall birth during the feast that celebrates God dwelling with his people fits the pattern Scripture consistently follows. The theology matches the timeline. And then Luke offers one final anchor. Luke tells us Jesus began his ministry at about 30 years of age. This detail matters historically and spiritually. Luke places the beginning of Jesus' ministry during the reign of a known Roman ruler, providing a verifiable time frame. But the age itself carries meaning. In Israel's law, full responsibility in sacred service began at maturity after preparation, testing, and formation. 30 marked readiness. So when Luke anchors the ministry to both age and imperial rule, the timeline becomes firm. Counting backward confirms the same year range demanded by Herod's reign. and the star's appearance. Every clue agrees. The registration favors favorable travel seasons. The shepherds demand mild nights. The star spans months, not hours. Herod's decree requires an earlier birth. The priestly schedule identifies conception timing. The feast calendar provides theological alignment. The age of ministry confirms the year. Different paths, same conclusion. Jesus was not born in December. The evidence points to a fall birth, most likely in September or October, during the final years before the Common Era. So why December 25th? Because cultures adapt before they abandon. In the Roman world, late December already symbolized returning light. As Christianity spread, leaders redirected meaning rather than erased tradition. The date endured. But Scripture never depended on it. And the apostles never centered faith on a birthday. They centered it on what the birth meant. The question of date matters less than the reality of arrival. God entered history. Light entered darkness. Hope took on flesh. Not because of a calendar square, but because the time was right. Whether under autumn skies or winter stars, the truth stands unchanged. Emmanuel, God with us. That is the celebration that endures.